I had some really long thank yous, but I'm going to cut them really short because you know how grateful I am to be here in Allentown. I just want to really say thank you. The other thing that I really want to say thank you about is most of what I'm getting ready to share with you, I had not thought about for years and years and years. Much of it I had disremembered. So thank you for letting me do this. And those of you who know me know that I don't talk a lot about myself. I am not an icon, but I am a person who has been around icons all my life, and I plan to spend the rest of my life writing about icons. My entire life, except for 1 year, has been spent in the Deep South, in the 4 places that we perhaps most associate with the Civil Rights Movement: Memphis, Tennessee, Montgomery, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, and Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee in the Jim and Jane Crow era. Tony Murray coined Jane Crow era, having been born there in 1946. Because my maternal ancestors were from Mississippi, maybe the worst state in the U.S., specifically Canton and Jackson, I grew up hearing about the racial terrorism of Mississippi, and we should use that term, racial terrorism. We should take it back from the media in terms of terrorism over there. So racial terrorism, I grew up in the racial terrorism of the South. I heard about lynchings, including a family lynching, inferior schools, intimidation, but also, and I think this is really important, resistance. One of my favorite stories came from my grandfather, who talked about a black family in Canton, Mississippi, where there were 12 sons. This is just almost unbelievable. And I haven't had a chance to really look this up, but I'm going to. He talked about this black family that had 12 sons that went around as vigilantes and took revenge on racist white people. And the amazing thing about this narrative for us, he said, was that they were never caught because nobody in the community ever revealed their identities. Now this is just unbelievable. That in a small town in Canton, Mississippi, they could breed this kind of habit, but also no person who would tell this. And my grandfather told his story over and over again. And he experienced tremendous joy. Getting ready to say now, I would never have imagined what I'm getting ready to say. But anyway, my aunt and uncle who lived in Jackson, Mississippi, were like the informants in the family. So they would call us and tell us about horrible things that happened. And I remember, as if it were yesterday, when they called and said what they got. And they were talking about the assassination of Medgar Evers. And then they also called and told us about the assassination of Emmett Till. I was, that was in 1955, I was 9 years old. They called. And one of the things I want to say to the family is that last summer I took a road trip to the Mississippi Delta with some South Asian friends of mine who had never been to the Tallahatchie River. I took them to the Tallahatchie River in Money, Mississippi, where Emmett Till was thrown. And I didn't see a marker there. Is that the case?
I got some marker there now.
Okay. Maybe we were in the wrong part. But we did go to the small museum there, and I want to encourage everybody in the room to go to the Mississippi Delta and to see that. But never would I have thought when I was out there at the river that I would meet members of the Emmett Till family. So I just want to say thank you all for enabling me to do that. So I'm moving really fast. Second part is Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery, Alabama is where I spent my summers and my vacations because my mother's sister was married to the president of Alabama State University in the George Wallace era. But the most important part of that connection was that I attended as a young girl Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. So I heard Martin Luther King Jr. preach on Sundays. I met Coretta Scott King as a little girl, and saw, of course, the two of them for the rest of my life, or the rest of their lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And I will never forget seeing and hearing Martin Luther King Jr. preach on Sundays. And one of the things that I remember is that he would come out of the church after he preached and stand at the back of the church, and young people like me would actually be able to go up and shake his hand. And the other thing that I really want to recall is that my cousin who died recently, Dr. Levi Watkins, was a member of a small group of black teenage guys that Martin Luther King actually mentored. And he actually drove Martin Luther King and others around during the Montgomery bus boycott. So even though I'm not an icon, I was surrounded by these people growing up and had absolutely no idea that these people would be important. Absolutely no. Eventually, I came back to Alabama State University to teach. This was my first job. This is 1969. And this is the first point at which I understood that women were important in the civil rights movement. I had absolutely no idea when the Montgomery bus boycott was going on, there was actually women who were not just the foot soldiers of the Montgomery bus boycott, but were the strategizers. It was Joanne Gibson Robinson, who wrote that wonderful memoir, Montgomery bus boycott, and the women who started it, that was in the same English department where I taught on my first job. And so this is the first point at which I began to say, I really need to do some work on women in the civil rights movement, because here I am back at Alabama State and know absolutely nothing about these women. So that was an extremely important moment in my own intellectual and political development. Coming back to teach at Alabama State University, where my uncle had actually interacted with George Wallace and would talk about him like a dog around dinner. So let me get to Memphis, Tennessee, where I actually spent most of my life. I was raised there by progressive parents, grandparents, specifically my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister, active in the civil rights movement, and present at the church where Martin Luther King Jr. preached his last sermon before being assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel the following day. And my grandfather talked about that night, literally talked about that night until he died at age 95. And he said anybody who had been in that church that night would have known, which of course the journalists have said, would have known that Martin Luther King knew, absolutely knew, that he would probably never speak another sermon. I also learned from Paul Giddens, Ida Wells Barnett's biography, which she minimized when she was talking, that my paternal great-grandfather, Fred Savage, was a shoemaker and a businessman on Beale Street, the infamous Beale Street, a very early black member of the Memphis Board of Education in the 1880s, but most importantly, a close friend and comrade of Ida Wells. He was an outspoken political activist. Now, I didn't learn that from my family. I learned that from reading Paula Giddens, Ida Wells Barnett. And as a result of that, Paula, I've been trying to do some very serious family history, so thank you. So my family history has played a profound role in my political and intellectual development around all kinds of liberation struggles. First, the civil rights movement, and then the women's movement, which I was going to talk a little bit more about, but I'm going to move on and do that. So let me fast forward to Spelman College. My mother picked Spelman for me because I'm only 15 years old when I graduated from high school. And so she picks what I now call the convent Spelman College. Because she knows that I will be in really good hands behind that fence and won't be able to get out. And she was really, that was really the case. But anyway, I came to Spelman College in 1962. By the time I arrived there, I had turned 16. It was the height of the student movement, and I was totally frightened and scared. My best friend from Memphis, Tennessee, with whom I had been connected since the 6th grade, dropped out of Spelman College her sophomore year and joined the Laurel Project in Jackson, Mississippi. But I was too scared to do that, and plus my mother had her hands, and anything else she could get around us. But I did join the marches with Martin Luther King in the desegregation of Bridges. Am I running out of time? Okay. So let me quickly say that much of what I have been doing with respect to this work is writing about icons, and right now my most important scholarly project is on the radical politics of Coretta Scott King. And one of the things that people don't know about Coretta Scott King necessarily is that her radical politics was broad. She met with Cesar Chavez in prison. And in the last years of her life, I would say that her most outspoken and transgressive and radical politics was around LGBTQ issues. Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to do is to rescue Coretta from that static role of professional widow and place her in the appropriate